webinar. My name is Tara Chumis, and I will be your moderator today. Today's webinar is called Scale Up Your Business with Cloud Technology, and our featured speaker today is Martin McNichol. Martin is the president of Guru Solutions, a leading cloud business consulting and services firm focused on providing the implementation, integration, and optimization of leading cloud solutions. He's also the author of what the webinar is based on today, also called Scale Up Your Business with Cloud Technologies. Before we begin, I'd just like to ask everyone to put themselves on mute so we limit any background noise. If you have any questions throughout the presentation, please use the question panel on the right-hand side of your screen. And if you're having any issues with the GoToWebinar at all, you can use the chat function and I'll help you troubleshoot. As a reminder, for the first 50 registrants, you will receive a copy of Martin's book within the next week. We'll advise the lucky winners via email within the next 24 hours, and our only ask is that you attend the entire webinar. So without any further ado, I will pass the baton over to you, Martin.
Thank you very much, Tara. Hi everyone, my name is Martin McNichol and I'm pleased to be with you today to actually talk about my new book, Scale Up Your Business with Cloud Technology. So what we've tried today is to address most of the content that can be easily presented within an hour, so we had to be selective on what we're going to present today. So so with any delay, let's start. So just to tell you a bit more about myself, I started my career in the 90s with Andersen Consulting, which is now called Accenture, and I've been lucky enough to work on some amazing business transformation projects where, as part of a various team implemented large systems such as SAP, Oracle Financial, and others for Fortune 500 companies. So I wrote this book to summarize 10 years of accumulated experiences, and you'll get a glimpse of some guru tips that are in my book in today's webinar. So we've positioned them at various sections. I'm also the president of Guru Solutions. I started that business in 2005 with the goal of helping businesses to scale up their businesses with cloud technology. So this is really in line with what I do on a regular basis. Of course, we're talking about the cloud, but back in 2005 when I started the company, this was not called the cloud, but I strongly believed at that point that this would be the way companies would consume their information system in the 21st century. So without any delay, let's start. All right, so I want to start before I get into some of the details, with telling you a short story. Every morning on my way to work, I pass this appliance repair store that's been there for over 40 years, I believe. Nothing has changed in all that time. Same service offering, same clients, spanning a radius of a mere few blocks. Some customers complaining about their washing machine that don't spin or their freezer aren't cold enough. And even the sign over the door is a relic from the 70s. Nothing has changed but the appliances. Hopefully, only the appliance changed there. But I tried at one point looking up the store online, and it didn't even have a website. So only a Yellow Pages listing with a phone number. While they serve hundreds of customers in a week in a single location, they have no ambition to grow or scale up their business. And they seem perfectly fine with that. So this store has zero use for cloud technologies. But if this is your case, well, you have no use for the cloud. But my guess is that if you're on this call today, this is important for you. All right, so in the 21st century, business models have evolved at a speed that we've never seen before. And, what were previously considered, these hippie crowdsourcing initiatives are now billion-dollar powerhouses. The world is literally upside down. Just look at Airbnb. That's the world's largest accommodation provider. They own no real estate, and they changed the whole hospitality market, making every homeowner, even some condos owner, and tenants and potential hotels. So if you look at Uber, the world's largest taxi company, they own no vehicles at all. I mean, this is an international ride-sharing service, and they now force a global rethink of transportation regulations. I mean, they transferred, again, Mercar ownership into entrepreneurship. What's interesting is that they too will soon be challenged by yet other newcomers, and some of them are piloting Airbnb-style car rentals. So just look for that trend again, the disruptor being disrupted again. And we can continue. Just cloud companies like Amazon, who are the leader online, they're now opening physical stores. And there's one that's been opened in New York, and there's other that are opening across the United States, which is quite interesting as they're coming back to brick and mortar. Bitcoin, just teaches us that money can be spent its entire life outside of a bank, not even in their computer system. And the list goes on and on. Look at Facebook. It's the world's most popular media owner, and they create no content at all. And it's only going to get crazier and crazier as time goes. So where am I going with this? Is that, are those newcomers shaking up your industry? And if they are, not even those, but they could be others, what are you going to do to make sure that you will not be the next dinosaur to become extinct? And over the years, what I've learned is to really get my business ready for adversity, and so that when it strikes, I have a way out. And my light bulb moment was when I realized that becoming scalable is really the best way to do so. And we're going to look at this today and how to be scalable in different tools and processes and tips that I'm going to share. Something interesting here. Did you know that back over 100 years ago, the first CEOs weren't chief executive officers? They were actually chief electricity officers. So, and that's, you can look it up on Wikipedia. That's pretty interesting. So back when factories were starting to make the switch from the steam engine and dynamos to the electrical power grid, but before they became a reliable source, they needed someone to ensure continual and steady supply of power. That's where the CEO was spending his time on. So it was a necessary position, but electricity eventually became a utility. And the world changed. Now, we don't even think about power anymore, right? We just buy an appliance, we just plug it in. So I believe that computing is having a similar trajectory. Every day today, everyone plugs into the internet, and we don't even give it a second thought. And I believe that there are two main things that made this change possible. And I think they're the following. The first one is, now there's a common way of communicating, and this for us, it's the high-speed internet. And the second one is a common presentation layer or a presentation standard, and that's what we call the browser. So the browser and high-speed internet makes this whole revolution possible. So lightweight machines can now render content. Think about your phones or Chromebooks. It can be a Macintosh, a PC. Remove either of one of those ingredients, the internet and the browser, and you just stumble back to the Stone Age of point-to-point connections. So in fact, what I propose is that this combo, that it's so obvious, nobody even thinks about it, and they're the two pillars of the new economy that we have today. So let's go to our first poll. So Tara, let's look at this. So a little survey. So if I'm telling you, and I guess like the big no software sign there is a hint of the answer maybe we're looking for. But if you look at the acronym Information Technology, or IT, which one is more important for you? Is it the I or the T? So let's see here if we can get that going. All right, so we can see the progress of our vote here. So people are voting. So there we go there. So thank you, Tara. So when we look at the acronym Information Technology, so what companies are looking for today, and as we've seen the result of the poll here, is the information. So while the technology, if we look at the technology in itself in terms of hardware and software and all this, is slowly taking the a second place in our environments. And what we're looking for now is the information. We want access to the information. We want to have people to just look at the information and having the analysis and the tools without having to build the software or build those capabilities. All right. So, I mean, some people in the audience, already get this, but just hang on with me for a couple of slides and for this section, and we'll get right back into how you can scale up your business with cloud technology. When we look at, and people are asking me and they say, Martin, how do you look at, on-premise versus cloud technology? Why change from on-premise to cloud technology? So what I like to use is this iceberg analogy. So if you look at an iceberg here and you take it here and there's a water line there and functionality is on top of it, and on the bottom, what's under the water, what you don't see is the hardware, the software, your databases, operating system, your IT support personnel, all the backup tools that you got to use, and all the support fees. This is what's supporting your functionality. So what I'm proposing here is that when you move to the cloud, is that a company moves from, does this 90-10 flip. So you free yourself from your infrastructure, and what happens is that your subscription fees is what is under the water, as you don't have to worry about it, and then you get all that functionality. So this is really the iceberg flip that gets you to grow and get all that functionality for you without having to worry about the mechanics that's under it. But all of this has to be, all those technologies, they have to be integrated. Look at it from any different perspective into your enterprise when you have financials, CRM, and all those systems, when they don't talk to one another, this is where it can get ugly. This is where all those cloud applications connected, if you're talking about these enterprise resource planning system, and this is where you can get a lot of value. So when they're not integrated, and this is ugly, right, where you have your how many people get into those situations where you have your financials that are disconnected from your manufacturing or your professional services and your operations. You got production on an island and CRM on their own, and not communicating with finance and the production folks. It can get very confusing and really not helping anyone there. So that's really important that when you select those services and those cloud technology, that you're able to integrate all of those into one. And that's what those applications, most of them offer, from the beginning. Now, there's this other reason when we that I call this the circle of death, and I wrote an article on LinkedIn on this one, and I like to play with those words. It just sounds very, very bad, the circle of death. But basically, here's the process that I describe when I called it the circle of death. So let's say that you're running this, brand new application on premise, and you're responsible for it, and you're super proud. And then at one point, after a year, sometimes faster, sometimes a bit longer, you need this new patch. So that's this area that you see at the top. You see the small puzzle piece there. So you've got this patch and this update that's required. So, and then you're asking yourself, all right, do I really need it? Do I need to put that patch in my system? Sometimes it's a requirement if you want to be supported. And all right, so you move forward and say, I need to do this upgrade. And then this update or upgrade needs a new gadget, whether it is new storage, new memory, new operating system, and this is where it gets very, very complex, where this simple update now is a full-scale project involving, other vendors and update to your hardware and downtime, and this is really bad. And this is going to keep on going as time goes on, and this is the circle of death. So what I'm proposing is that to get out of the circle of death, when you get to that point where you say, well, I need to do this big upgrade, this is the time to say, can I do this a different way? Can I move my information systems to the cloud? Can I consume my information as a service? And this is where you can move to the cloud. Now, that project is not easier or not that easy to move to the cloud. That's a big project too, but at least at the end, you get to a subscription model where you always get the last version. Now, this is your exit, right? You get your brand new application forever, and there you're happy, and you can really move on in running your business and not running your software. And what we see in the same situation is that we also see larger companies where IT, and you've noticed all those drawings. I love to scribble on a whiteboard So I've put a lot of those whiteboard graphics. They're also in the book. So there's a bunch of other in the book. So if you like cartoons-ish, you can see some of the artwork in the book here. But all that to go back to the topic is when you've got these companies that you've got an IT department, and we have limited resources, people, and money, and you've got this great project, and you need this modification. You need modification to your CRM. You need modification to your financials. You need this new process to speed up this new initiative. And if you're running specialized software that are on-premise that you need, very, very specialized skills to put in place, then you're stuck because your demand goes, bottom of the pile, and then the CIO's got this budget and they got to execute it. So let's say your initiative is important and you really need it to reach your objective. Can you really wait for 6 months to get it there? And what happens today is that people don't. And here's what happens when you just can't get your priorities on top of the pile, is that enter the rogue application. So this is, I like this character there. It's evil, it's smiling there, and this is the new product that you got to go live with, and you need, for example, this supporting application. Let's say you want to calculate some spiff model or commission or anything that you need to store more information, but there's no time to put it in the big mothership. So what do? So you build it quickly, a friend of a friend that knows Microsoft Access or FoxPro, and if your initiative fails or doesn't go very far, then it's not really an issue, right? So you've built this little thing and it stays in Excel or it stays in FoxPro. But what if it succeeds? What if this rogue application is now the cornerstone of this huge success? So this is what I call the risk of success, is that now your rogue application just falls into the CIO's hamster wheel, and now they have to juggle all those applications. So, and what's interesting right now, and you'll see this, on the internet, and there's a lot of articles that are starting to be written on this, and some people are starting to coin the term darkitecture. So this is the dark architecture where all those applications that are in the background ran in departments not connected to your ecosystems, and these can become very dangerous to your whole environment, as your business critical processes are relying on flimsy, unsupported applications. All right, so let's move on to our first list of guru tips. So some of the guru tips there are related to some of the material that we've seen before, some are not. So traditional software model means you have to run to stay in place. I think we've talked about it, and if you're using the cloud today and or are converted, you know that. Moving to the cloud will ensure that cost versus functionality flips to your advantage, like the iceberg analogy, and consume your infrastructure as a service to free yourself from it. And I strongly believe in this. At Guru Solutions, our whole building could burn down tomorrow morning. We could run the business out of Starbucks or Tim Hortons, because we're also in Canada, so we love our Tim Hortons. But that's the reality, and that's how we've been able to continue to scale and focus on our business and not on the equipment. All right, so let's look at our second portion of the webinar, which is structure your business to set up winning conditions. So I'm not only going to talk about technology here. I'm going to talk about some business insights that I got in all 10 years that I've been in business, and more from my past, and what I've learned from them and how they can help you to grow in the context also of implementing cloud technology. So here's another one of my favorite here in the book, that the Operation Man, but repurposed or maybe we gave him something else to wear here for the occasion. So when you want to put a new system in place, this is going to be hard. I mean, this is hard work. And what I like to tell our customers, early on in our relationship, is that scaling up is it's a bit like getting a heart and a lung transplant while running. So, and while running, I mean, you can't stop while it's happening. Most of the time when you do those operations, I mean, your company is thriving, you've got the budget, you're ready to go, you want to double, triple your business in a couple years, and the time is now. So as an example, as we look at this, your heart could be, for example, your accounting system. The legs could be here, any operating system of the company, right? Could be your warehouse management system, your professional services automation, distribution, manufacturing, or other. Your lungs are everything that helps you sell, including your CRM, to name just one example. Business intelligence here, the light bulb moment. At this point, I'd like to introduce you to an author that I really like, and this gentleman also wrote the foreword to my book. His name is Verne Harnish, and Verne is a great summarizer of complex theoretical concepts. And I mean, he boils it down using simple language that just cuts to the heart of what it means to run a business. And his book, I believe, is not only for CEOs or if you're a VP and running a department, but can really help you out in anywhere you are in your company. And his book is called Scaling Up: Mastering the Rockefeller Habits 2.0. So, and that's his second book. And I think it'll convince anybody beyond a doubt that they need systems and structure to handle the complexity that comes with growth. So in his book, Verne explains how running your business is focused on 4 key decisions areas. So people, strategy, execution, and cash. So execution is where processes, tools, cloud implementation, or other fit in. So this is where that's the focus of my book and, of course, this webinar. And Verne, I mean, he goes on to explain that there are 3 main barriers to scaling up. In his mind, he sees leadership, or the ability to grow enough leaders who can scale, market dynamics or competitive pressure that sometimes go unaddressed, and scalable infrastructure that can handle the complexity and decisions that will come with growth. So what I'm going to elaborate also today is on scalable infrastructure, so in an effort to really dismantle one of those 3 barriers. So when we look in the context of a business transformation, so when companies look to grow and say, I need to change, I need to have this initiative, and we start working with those clients, here's how we approach business transformation. So we of course, we start looking at the business transformation initiatives as a whole, and then we look at the specific strategic initiatives that they want to put forward. And what we like is we look at change management, what's the ability of a company to adopt the new technology, what's their ability to change, to grow and scale up their business. Only then do we look at the process, and I'll spend a bit more time on processes later on, and then we look at a cloud solution after having looked at the business processes that need to be implemented. And this is not new. I mean, you see this quadrant in tons of places. But when we go in the process quadrant, that's where we introduce some of Verne Harnish, and we have a couple of other authors that we like, and we propose those documentation so people can write their very own what I call process playbook, or SOPs. And SOPs stands for Standard Operating Procedure, and I'll touch on that topic in a minute. And this is also where we help them to identify which of their processes are tied to specific people and not position, right? And this can be, pretty bad when you have those tied to people. So let's start with my standard operating procedures. And people who know me, and this is a drum that I'm banging on a weekly, monthly basis on documenting our standard operating procedures. And if you look at different organizations, I'll just pick a couple that use SOPs on a regular basis. If you think of the military, right? So you look at an organization that has super high attrition, right? They get new recruits on a regular basis. These men and women, they stay in the forces sometimes 10 years, maybe less, and then they go out. So they need to train all those people in a single way so that the product or the training that they provide will make sure that everybody does their work the same way. So they are super good at SOPs and standard operating procedures and manual and training. Now, if you go back to McDonald's, fast food chain, I mean, you have this uniformity. I mean, you look at a Big Mac, and you can eat a Big Mac from one side of the country to the other, and the Big Mac is the same. So why is it that they can do this? Why do they have this uniformity? And, and we ask ourselves from time to time, how can I get this uniformity in my business? How can I make sure that as I grow, I can have everybody doing the work according to the best practices. So what I've done, at Gurus, and you can see this in other documentation, is that I've split our SOPs in 3 main sections. The first one is operations, and I'll give you a couple of examples of what we put in there and the deliverable that are there. And I mean, we use a cloud. All of this for us is in Google for Work, so Google Documents that are maintained by departments that everybody can access, and these are live documents. So first section is operations. The second one is administration and logistics, and the third one is leadership. So if you look at operations, so we put everything in there that's related to the first part on our revenue engine. So for example, there's 2 main documents that we have in there. One is the marketing playbook, and the second one is the sales playbook. Very complementary documents. But think about how you want your whole organization to be on the same page for marketing. What's the brand guide, and how do you go to trade shows? What is it that you wear? What are the different standards that you put out there? What are the banners? How do you go to write, material for social media, telemarketing? The sales playbook, a bit more complex. So your sales mission, your territories, team assignments, sales processes, what are the stages that go in your CRM. So note here, we're not talking about technology here. We're only talking about documenting your processes so they can be executed in a tool afterward. There's also your secret sauce, right? What do you put if you're a consulting company or a production company, distribution company? What's your methodology? How do you deliver your services or your product? What's your production guide? How do you manage knowledge? What's innovation for you, and how do you manage innovation? And you can also capture, all your processes for operations in there. And the last one, administration and logistics, that are, in my mind also super important. So all your information system, internal system, how do you manage them? Just accounting, what happens on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. All of a sudden, you got to grow your finance team. What's AP doing? What's AR doing? How do you, segment those roles? HR, recruiting. What's your, hire to retire process there? Everything legal, your physical premises, and what you end up at the end is that you've got this guide, this manual to say this is the manual of my company. This is how I can operate. Of course, it's not everybody that has access to the document. You can segment it so different individuals can have access to the information they want, but I believe it's critical to document this. And the last part in leadership, so how do you do your strategic planning, your one-page plan if you're familiar with Verne Harnish? What's your agenda when you do executive meetings or team meetings or VP meetings? How do you communicate with your staff, etc.? So super important SOPs. Every companies we've seen using those SOPs, they can actually grow and go into second and third speed in a much easier way than their competition. This next one I really like it, and it's called the Decision Matrix, and it's just another tool. And there's this gentleman named Scott Fritz, and he wrote a book called The 40-Hour Work Year. But other than that, and he works more than 40 hours per year. But it's a great title for his book. But in his book, he presented this matrix to help decision makers to align by type of decision. So it's a quicker way to decision making, and ultimately to scale up. And this is at a global level for a corporation, but you could do it at your team level also. And that's a simple one that you have there. But as an example, if you would fill in this matrix for your company, what would you notice? And when we've done this exercise, as we've met Scott a couple times, and we were doing this exercise, and some of my colleagues, what they would end up is that the X's would all be under one column, under CEO or the owner, and that's not really scalable. And that's just an eye-opening for people to just realize that they need to delegate a lot of those functions. So the last piece of the pie is people and change management. And then here sometimes I think I'm funny, so I've got those little quotes there under my scribble. But and just a couple of things to consider in a business transformation initiative here. So existing skills, what are the skills that are in the organization? Can they, actually use a computer. And you might think it's funny as you're listening to this webinar, but it's not, it's not uncommon to go into some organizations that are more traditional, that not everybody even have an email address. So that's super important to manage if you think that these people are going to be able to operate a CRM or an ERP system within a couple of months. What's their workload? What's the buy-in of the organization? And as this, cartoons, says, are they ready for change in their work habits? So this guy goes, I want it exactly the same way, but I want it to be disruptive. Just do this for me. And you can see our, our star CIO there, just looking at this guy. And also, what's your strategy for adoption and training? So a couple things that we see in our implementations. So just to wrap it up in terms of our tools and business integration tips here. So some of them start with the benefits. Make sure that all your key players are on the same page. Everybody wants to do this project and they agree to go in the same direction. Defining a clear business blueprint of what your business will look like at the end of the implementation. And this has to be realistic and have, a good view of the role that the new technology will play as a key enabler. Because, if you just put in technology without this, I mean, it's just another tool. Then make sure you have solid business owners able to make the right decisions, and just build your right coalition from the start to make sure that, you'll play to win. And now we'll go into our second poll of the day. So Tara, so based on what we've discussed so far, is your company ready to scale up? Don't be shy. You can say yes. We've got an awesome team here. All right, so we'll give it a couple more seconds. Everybody's on the ball. Everybody's ready to scale up. Awesome. All right, so let's move on to the next section of our presentation, which I call picking your stack. So when we look at any project or our systems, what I'd like to say is that, every house as a foundation. So, and picking the right tools is super important, and it's easier said than done. So let's just move to our, next graphic here. So, and the first thing I'd like to say is that you have to use your growth objectives as the starting point, and this will lead to a whole range of questions. So where do I want to be, 3 years from now? 5 years from now? What's your BHAG, your big, hairy, audacious goal? So, and with Cloud Solution, will the solution that I choose today develop all the capabilities and feature sets that I need? Then will the tools and systems grow with me when I need them to? So you don't want to be stuck with a system that will not really be helpful for you. So these are all valid questions. And the fact is that your technology provider won't always give you a 5-year roadmap. And even if they did, it would probably change. So it's best to proceed with an action plan for a scalable stack that'll make you immune to those changing tides. So what I've put here, I mean, Gartner did something, like this, and they call this the pace layering model. So, whether you anticipate, extra staff in your organization, and over the next 2 years to have like tons of people due to mergers and acquisition, I mean, you'll most likely need to replace your human capital management tool, your HCM software, with one that is stronger and faster, and you'll need to do it without disrupting all the rest. So wouldn't it be great if you could just add or remove solutions like interchangeable block? And that's what this pace layering model is for. And you see all those little blocks there, and the first layer there is your system of record, right? This is where you put your basic functionality. And as you go up, you have your systems of differentiation. This is what you're going to use to beat the competition. And lastly, your third layer here, which is like the build, the change layer, all your system innovation, your new pilot, the parts that will change faster. And all those are in those layers where the bottom is your foundation, and as you go up, this is the stuff that you can change, and that's much easier to change. So just to put more meat on it, let's say we look at your system of record there, and you're built to last at the bottom. You get your customer relationship management, product suppliers, your orders, your financial. This is what needs to stay there, your system of record. So as an example, one of your objectives might be efficient period close. I want to close my periods within a couple days. So what is it that I need to do this to be more efficient? Your second layer, your system of differentiation, this is what you use to beat the competition. So better demand response, so you can have like some tools for budget and planning, some e-commerce initiative for a very specific amount of time. You want to optimize vendor lead time, so you can, putting some of those tools to make you more effective. And lastly, the last layer, you built the built to change layer. These are your game-changing deals. So you're going to bring them in just on specific occasions. So corporate planning, you can have external bankers come in on a, on just for a specific initiative, strategy management, company acquisition, and so forth. So, I mean, Gartner, I really like what they did in this space layering model, and it's very interesting as it goes right hand in hand with how you want to build your stack or your cloud ecosystem, so you're able to grow your business. And when you look at this ecosystem, an ecosystem that's well designed, it looks somewhere like a sun. So maybe you see what I have here on the right with the cloud platforms, where you see the apps and the the little spoke there and the applications that you can link to it. And sometimes this cloud, if you allow me, is connected to legacy systems. And this is where, when a lot of organizations, larger size, where they just cannot totally disconnect something that's been established for years. As an example, we have clients that use SAP, or they use Oracle Financial, and they use our cloud applications to connect to those applications to extend their capability, to go in subsidiaries or different countries where they don't have that presence with SAP, and they want to have additional capability without having to put in place another implementation of a large software. So that's the industry coined the term for this, and they call it two-tier ERP. So you have the first tier, what's your legacy systems, and they connect this platform to the mainframe or the on-premise systems, and that you have this twin star configuration. But when it starts to resemble this series of molecule at the bottom, this is where you're in trouble, where everything talks to everything. That's not really good. So that can be very problematic. And for the people that are literate in chemistry, you'll notice that this is a sketch of the molecule of caffeine. So this is how you'll feel when it's really bad. So small exercise, if you want to, if you go to martinmcnichol.guru, you'll find a guide that you can download with all the exercises that are in the book. And this is something you can do for yourself, and just to give you an idea of where you're at and what applications you're using. So I encourage you can go to martinmcnichol.guru and download the worksheets. And basically what I encourage you is to go in there and just jot down the applications that you have in your ecosystem. So it's always a great start to have an inventory of everything that you've got in terms of for your sales, what are you using in your different business units, what are you doing, what tools are you using to manage your people, your accounting, and all other applications that are core to your business. Just to give you an example of what it can look like, I've used logos here, but feel free just to jot it down. But that could be just an example, right? Where you have Salesforce, NetSuite, we use a lot of those tools, Force.com, Amazon, and in terms of your operation tools, again, all of them being in the cloud. And what's beautiful with this is that most of those, they just integrate, and these vendors, they will provide interfaces with those. And just as an example, we use Pardot as a tool, and Pardot connects to GoToMeeting, which is the tool we're using for the webinar today. So we didn't have to design or build that integration. So all those tools talk to one another, and they can get you going faster in getting that synergy of having tools talk to each other, so you don't have to redo the work. All right. So moving on. So guru tips for picking your stack. So picking a technology stack means picking a scalable platform. That'll be the foundation for your growth. So that's super important. And the best application is one that can be replaced easily if needed. So if you can rip it off and put it back, later on putting another tool, that's perfect and gives you that flexibility for your company. And different part of your business will grow at different times and rates. So take time to really understand the different systems that you have in place and their different growth timeline. And that'll enable you to really manage your stack there. So moving on. So now you're happy you've done it. You've implemented a cloud platform. You're happy that you now have a system that makes your company more responsive to clients. Your employees are happy. But most likely it solves a business problem that you had. But where do you go next? Where do you go from here? And now you can plan to add different functionalities. Both that you had before you didn't, or that'll help you in the future. And the beauty of having a platform is that, like Apple says, there's an app for that. And what's great when you have this platform is you can really connect those functionality, these business functionality, to help you grow your company. And all those vendors, all those platform vendors, whether they call it Suite App or App Exchange or something else, they have those directories of applications that are already built that you can basically plug in almost like an iPhone. So, hey, I'm looking to do contract management. All right, this is great. Or tax management, electronic signature, advanced budgeting. How do I do this? I can plug in those vendors' platforms into my platform and get that functionality, and it's all integrated. So that's really an advantage, and that you have when you have a platform and you have to use it. This is one of the, in my mind, one of the great value of having a platform in your IT ecosystem. All right, so we're getting closer to the end. So what I've done is I've gathered a bunch of what I call guru rules to live by, and things that are, I would say, quite important, and maybe some disruptive ideas for you of what to do with your systems and your infrastructure and your business. So first one, turn data into revenue. And you got to find a way to turn your data into revenues. And that's where it's going when you've got all of this on a platform. So let's say you don't want to leverage your data right away. There's, for analytics for your company, let's say you've got tons of this data, and sometimes people call it big data now. So you can, with those platforms, find ways to monetize them. You can turn your platform with APIs or application programming interfaces to offer services to others. And this is where software as a service or platform as a service comes in. And you can have people to consume your data as a service. So that's pretty interesting for companies that have good quantity of data that can be monetized. Software as a service and platform as a service are not the path to the easy life, right? So now that you don't directly manage network and infrastructure anymore, I mean, you let others do it, which is perfect. That's the way to go. But you have a whole bunch of new capabilities that you can use. So you can continue to look for improvement for opportunities and turn to service providers to execute on the services that can be commoditized. So as an example, you can plug your system into a payroll. You can, outsource AR, accounting, legal. There's tons of stuff that you can do now with your platform because you can give access in a secure way outside your organization. And of course, these play a big part in making sure that your company continues to differentiate itself from its competitors. So this means, this might mean outsourcing from different places and being scalable. Trusting partners will help you with complexity. And just don't look for apps. You got to find partners that can complement them, and sometimes there are services that come with those apps. And that's how global businesses work. I mean, connection between companies are getting more and more sophisticated. So look for one have done it before. They've got the services, and and skills are changing by the minute. So learn to rely on those partners to help you and use the technology that they're expert in to give you the services and the value that you want. And they can provide analytics, mobile capabilities that you've never dreamed of. So, I mean, buckle up for the ride and just, get some help. Not all processes are created equal, and this is one that we talk to our customers on a regular basis. So a company's processes are at the core of what drive positive changes, and they'll be used to customize the business without changing all your key differentiators. So please don't confuse tactics with processes, and we see that many times. So, customers comes in and they think their competitive advantage or the differentiator is a customized sales process, where, in fact, it's one that can be run totally out of the box. So what they need to focus on is their go-to-market tactics. It's more about which customers they target, the value prop, than the tool. I mean, the tool is there and it'll just do the job, and there's a lot of things that are out of the box to do the job. So a good platform will really enable finance, CRM, and other key processes, distribution, professional services out of the box. So find the processes that are your true differentiators and just work on them. Stick to your processes, but be flexible. So, it's easy when we get to in those SOPs and decision matrix and everything to say, this is the process, we got to follow it. But you have to, avoid, becoming a slave to your processes. So processes have to be flexible enough to change, and you have to decide what's, the minimum change required to your processes to have that flexibility. So it's a trade-off between platform flexibility and what the business needs to run, and that's really important to strike a good balance between the two. Be safe but not paranoid about security. I mean, it's really true that larger organizations are a lot more sensitive to security than smaller ones, and I believe that their fear about using shared services like multi-tenant application with others are really proportional to the size of the business. But it's not all or nothing. So alleviating those security fears becomes much less about implementation and more about design. So we've seen time and again that fearful response is usually disproportionate to any actual threats that are due to the system themselves. So don't block yourself from using all the cool technology that's out there to improve your business just because of security or fear of security. And again, when you're in this environment, you can plan for what you can predict. So hope for the best, plan for the worst. Give yourself a way to remove and replace faulty parts with as little friction as possible. And we've looked at that in the when we've talked about paste layering, and it's everywhere. And everything is becoming virtualized in the industry, and this will really affect your business. You got to be ready for it. We've talked about changes in the business, early on, but now there's tons of changes that are happening. I mean, Microsoft is slowly introducing what they call the HoloLens, a totally different way to look at the world through, holographic lens. Tesla just announced. Did just announce it. I mean, it came earlier this summer, but solar power home battery. What will this mean for you? If you're in the construction market, oil at super low prices. What does it mean for you if you're in the oil industry? So, what's the implication on your business there? And you need to be able to switch gears, not over years, but over months. So you got to look at those factors that are affecting your industry and be ready to switch. What if this happens? What can I do? Where can I go and rip off one part and go in overdrive, or remove a part that's not necessary anymore? So, and that's really where, you have to time the design of your business with innovation, and, if you do this, it'll be yours. So keep your small, sharp team of big thinkers in your company and outsource or go with, consume your infrastructure as a service for 95% of what is a commodity, and keep what's important for you, the 5-10% that's your differential factors, and play with that one. This is where you need to put your energy in. Don't focus on finance if this is not what's important for you. And, of course, if you want to build something solid, and I've been talking about this for most of the presentation, don't build it on seismic ground. So on that, I'll finish with this great quote: keep calm and keep scaling up. And what we'll do, so we'll go into a Q&A session right now, but just before we go into Q&A, To get more information on how to scale up your business with cloud technologies, so like I've mentioned at the beginning, the worksheets are available to download for free on martinmcnichol.guru. You can also email us at scalemeup@martinmcnichol.guru. We'll be able to help you out and send you some information. And you can buy more books on Amazon. Of course, the 51st people that attended or registered to the webinar will get a free copy of the book, and there's also an ebook format on the Kindle store on Amazon. So on this, Tara, I'll let you read out.
Great, thanks so much, Martin. Great presentation. We have a couple of questions that came in. The first one I have here is how long and difficult is it to implement a cloud solution compared to an on-premise solution?
That's an excellent question, and I would say that cloud implementation are usually shorter in time, and the reason is here is if you look at two equivalent implementation of equal size, is that there's no hardware sizing, no software to install databases or patches to go through to get it all there. So we start right with the business discovery. So this is really helpful, as 24 hours after the start, we can just dive right in and talk to our the key stakeholder at the project and really start configuring the application if we need to. So the second part of the question was the difficulty, right? So how difficult is it to implement? So usually it's the same, and one of the main components is change management. So as with on-premise systems, your difficulty will really vary based on the readiness of your team to take on new tool, new technology, and implement those processes. So I'll be the short answer to that question.
Next question I have here, I've actually heard it quite a bit. It's how secure are cloud systems?
And that's a good one, especially when I said don't be paranoid about those. I mean, if you look at it, then all the companies that are putting in place cloud systems today, and they're using it using platforms that have been built with now some fairly large companies, billion-dollar companies, and a lot of those, actually most of them, are better equipped and spend more money on security than almost anyone can afford. I mean, if you have even if you have a large business with hundreds of millions of dollars, you will not spend as much money as these folks do on their infrastructure. As for them, one little leak and their company dies. So that's super important. And I would say that you're in fact more secure than you can ever be if you put this in place yourself. And with most of these vendors, you're using technologies that's up to par with most of the banks you do business with, if not better. So the point is, security to me is also a service. And if your business is not security, I think you should also consume it as a service. So I would say that's again, my short answer on security.
Okay, we've got room for probably about 2 more questions. One just came in. How do cloud solutions differentiate regarding implementation risks and costs?
So the risk and the cost. So if you look at the the risk of an on-premise versus a cloud solution, in terms of the risk, I would say the hardware risk and the software risk in terms of what you're installing from one vendor is much lower on the cloud side, as you would go with something that's already live for hundreds, if not thousands, and thousands of clients. So in terms of the risk there, I would say that if you remove that one, your risks are equal after that, as it relies, as I've mentioned, on change management and processes and people that are putting in place the system and using it. In terms of cost, the models are quite different, as if you go with the first model, the on-premise model, you'll have a large lump sum of money at the beginning where you'll buy your hardware, your licenses, and you'll have a lower cost as you move on for support. As for large organizations, if you look at thousands of users, what happens is that since it's a recurring license model every year, is that your cost will be similar to your on-premise, but it'll be spread over multiple years. And some people will calculate and say, well, after 5 years, my system is almost paid off. And if you add those 5 years, it's the same cost of my cloud application, and then my cloud application will cost me more. So what we lose in that equation is that the person, the companies that uses the cloud application, they will be using a brand new, up-to-date software 5 years later, as the other one will be using a software that's 5 years old. So that's where I would, position those two elements.
Great. And last question here, which I think is a good question. What is the #1 reason implementations fail?
That's a good one. The #1 reason. I would say that the #1 reason implementation fail is, and I'll use the term communication on a very broad basis. So whether you're using any type of technology, communication of our clients with their team of what this project is all about, communication of the people doing the implementation with the project team, and so forth. So I believe that with clear communication and really open dialogue with everyone within all the organization, whether the company putting in place the system or with the integrator, is key. And when this goes down, I believe this is the source of most of the ERP implementation failures.
Great. Thank you so much, Martin. It was a really good presentation today. I'd like to thank everybody also for joining today and taking some time to listen to Martin's insight. If you have any additional questions, please feel free to visit his website, martinmcnichol.guru. I entered it into the chat box down there so you can have a quick access. And thank you all for your time today, and have a great rest of the day.